It is another heartbreaking morning in Nigeria, and the news we are bringing you today is the kind that sits heavy on the chest. We are talking about a coordinated assault that has left no fewer than 32 people dead across 3 communities in Borgu local government area of Niger State. The names of these communities, Tunga Makeri, Konsoko and Pisa, will now be added to the long list of Nigerian villages that have known the footsteps of killers in the night. Before we go into the details of what happened, let me ask you something. If you believe that the lives of these 32 innocent people matter, if you think we need to keep telling these stories until something changes, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We need your support to keep bringing these stories to light. Now, let me take you through what happened, because the timeline of this attack tells us a lot about how these criminals operate and why our current security arrangements are failing us. Picture this. It is around 3 in the morning. Tunga Makeri is deep in sleep, the kind of sleep you have in a rural community where there is no street light, no police patrol, just the darkness and the sounds of the night. Families are in their rooms, children curled up beside their mothers, fathers resting after a day of farming or trading. Then, the silence is shattered, not by 1 or 2 attackers, but by a large group. We are talking about over 200 armed bandits descending on a sleeping community. Think about that number for a moment. 200 men moving through the village, carrying weapons, setting houses on fire, shooting, shouting, killing. By the time the attack on Tunga Makeri ended, 6 people were dead, several houses were destroyed. But here's the thing that should trouble us deeply. This was just the beginning. Now, at this point, let's pause and ask ourselves, where was security at 3 a.m.? Where were the rapid response teams? These are questions the families of the dead will be asking for years.
If the attackers had stopped at Tunga Makeri, we might be reporting a different story today. But they didn't stop. Around 6 a.m., just as dawn was breaking, they struck again. This time, they hit Konsoko and Pisa. Now, imagine being a resident of Konsoko. You might have heard rumors during the night. Maybe you heard distant sounds from Tunga Makeri. Maybe you prayed it wasn't coming your way. But at 6 a.m., just as you are waking up, just as you are thinking about the day ahead, they arrive. This second wave was even deadlier. 26 people were killed in Konsoko and Pisa combined. And it wasn't just lives they took. They set buildings ablaze. They burnt down a police outpost. A police outpost, the very symbol of state authority, of protection, of the idea that the government is present. They reduced it to ashes. Let's think about what it means to burn a police outpost. It is not just destruction of property, it is a message. These attackers are saying, we are not afraid of your security. We can touch whatever we want, whenever we want. The exact casualty figures for Pisa remain unclear even now. Why? Because residents are still counting. They are still searching. They are still hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone they love is not among the dead, but simply missing.
Now, here is a detail that should make us all sit up and think. These communities are roughly 200 kilometers from the Air Force base in Bussa. 200 kilometers. On a good road, that might be a few hours' drive. But on the kind of rural roads we have in Nigeria, on roads that are often impassable, on roads that bandits know better than security forces, 200 kilometers might as well be 1,000. The attackers operated for several hours. Several hours. They moved from Tunga Makeri to Konsoko to Pisa. They killed, they burned, they destroyed. And by the time security forces could mobilize, by the time they could cover that 200 kilometers, by the time they could arrive, the attackers were long gone. This is what security analyst Dauda Gombe from Yobe State was talking about when he mentioned ungoverned spaces with poor infrastructure. He said there is poor infrastructure, lack of access road, and other things that may limit security presence. Let me ask you another question. How many communities in Nigeria are like Tunga Makeri, Konsoko and Pisa? How many villages are sitting there, vulnerable, hours away from the nearest security response, waiting for their turn? If you are just joining us, I want to remind you to please subscribe to this channel. These are the stories that need to be told. These are the voices that need to be heard. Your subscription makes it possible.
Now, let's move away from the facts and figures for a moment. Let's talk about what the survivors are feeling today. Imagine you are a mother in Tunga Makeri. You wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of gunshots. You grab your children. You hide in the corner.
You hear your neighbors screaming. You hear your other neighbor's roof collapsing in flames. You pray, you beg God, you promise anything if He will just let you and your children see the morning. Morning comes, you come out, your village is destroyed. Your neighbor's husband is dead. Your friend's daughter is missing. The smell of smoke is everywhere. The sound of wailing fills the air. And you ask yourself, why? What did we do? This is what these attacks do. They don't just kill people, they destroy the fabric of communities. They break the spirit of survivors. They create trauma that will last for generations. And what about the children? The ones who saw their fathers killed, the ones who watched their homes burn. What kind of future do they have? What kind of citizens will they become when they grow up knowing that the government could not protect them? Now, we must report that security forces have now been deployed. Rescue operations are ongoing. But let's be honest with ourselves. The deployment came after 32 people were dead, after houses were destroyed, after a police outpost was burned, after the attackers had already done what they came to do. This is the pattern we keep seeing. Attack, kill, destroy, and leave. Then security arrives, then condolences are issued, then promises are made, then nothing changes. Then another attack happens. Dauda Gombe, a security analyst, put it plainly when he said, "Is it the governors? Is it the restriction by the constitution of having the federal control security? I think both are responsible for what is happening today." He is saying something important here. The governors collect security votes. Every month, money is allocated for security. But when attacks happen, the governors say they don't control the police or the army because those are federal. The federal government says they are doing their best. Meanwhile, people are dying. From this point, we need to understand that this is not just about blaming anyone. This is about a system that is not working, a system that leaves rural communities vulnerable, a system that cannot respond quickly to attacks because of poor roads, poor communication, and poor coordination.
Now, let's talk about something Dauda raised that is really important: community policing. He said, this can lead us to think about the need for community policing to be effective, to be efficient, so that we can act on time whenever these things are happening. What does community policing mean? It means having security personnel who are from the community, who know the community, who speak the language, who know the bush paths, who know who is a stranger and who is not. It means not waiting for someone from Abuja or Minna to arrive hours after the attack. But here's the challenge. We have over 250 million Nigerians. Are our security personnel enough? Dauda asked this question directly. Are our security personnel enough to protect them? No. So what do communities do when they feel abandoned by the government? Some do what we have seen in many parts of the north. They negotiate, they pay levies, they make agreements with bandits, they sacrifice their farmlands, their houses, sometimes even their wives and daughters just to survive. Is this right? Absolutely not. Dauda was very clear. This negotiation will never be a solution. The best solution is to have effective policing that protects the lives and property of citizens. But here is the tragedy. When government is absent, when trust in government is deficit, when people feel abandoned, they resort to what they feel is the best option. Even if it's not the best, it's the only option they have. Let me ask you, if you lived in a community that was hours from any security post, and bandits came to you and said, "Pay us or we kill you," what would you do? It's easy to judge from a safe distance, but when it's your family on the line, when it's your children, what choice do you really have?
This brings us to a debate that has been going on for years in Nigeria: state police. Dauda Gombe is very clear on this. He believes it is time. He said, if we look at other advantages that will come, for instance, every state, if they recruit their own state people, they will not be left alone. The police will be checking them, guiding them, providing all the necessary support. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What about governors misusing state police? What about using them against political opponents? What about human rights abuses? These are valid concerns. We have seen what happens when security forces become tools of those in power. But Dauda makes a powerful point. Just within 2 weeks now, how many lives have we lost? Nigeria has become a blood ground. Every blessed day, more than 20 people or thereabout are being lost. 20 people every day. Think about that. That's a plane crash every week. That's a bus accident every day. That's a massacre every 48 hours. So the question becomes, can the fear of misuse justify continuing with a system that is clearly failing? Dauda says no. He says, let's try something and see. At least then we can now come up and say whether it is working or not working.
This is the point where I need to ask you again. If you believe we need to have this conversation about state police, if you think something has to change, please like this video. Let the algorithm know that Nigerians care about these issues. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so now.
Dauda ended the conversation with a powerful question. Can terrorism be defeated when allegations of internal compromise, local enablers, and weak accountability remain unresolved? His answer? Yes, but only if we put the right parameters in place. He said we need both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches. We need to go back to the drawing board. We need to address the lack of synergy, collaboration, and intelligence sharing between security agencies. We need to stop the competition where everyone wants to be first, where agencies don't share information because they want the credit. He said we need to have a system that works for Nigeria, for Nigerians, and for the future we have. We need to have a system that responds immediately to any challenge. And most importantly, he said, terrorism can only be defeated when we are united, when we are stronger together, and when we understand that these people have no person or group that is exempted. Everyone is their enemy. This is the truth we must accept. Bandits don't care if you are Christian or Muslim. They don't care if you are Hausa, Yoruba, or Igbo. They don't care if you voted for PDP or APC. Everyone is a target. Everyone is a potential victim. So what do we take away from this tragedy in Borgu local government? First, we must acknowledge that our current security architecture is not working for rural communities. The distance from Tunga Makeri to the Air Force Base in New Bussa is 200 kilometers. In terms of response time, that distance might as well be 200 light years. Second, we must have an honest conversation about state police. Yes, there are risks. Yes, there are concerns. But the risk of doing nothing, the risk of continuing with a system that leaves 32 people dead in a single morning, that risk is greater. Third, we must rebuild our local government system. We must make local government functional again. We must ensure that rural communities feel the presence of government, not just in times of tragedy, but every day. Fourth, we must address the trust deficit between citizens and government. People need to believe that if they share information, something will be done. They need to believe that reporting suspicious activity will lead to action, not just another file in another office. Finally, we must understand that security is everyone's business. It is not just the job of police and soldiers. It is the job of community leaders, traditional rulers, religious leaders, parents, teachers, and every citizen. When we see something, we must say something. When we know something, we must share something.